The golden age of Call of Duty has long passed. The Xbox 360 era of COD was filled with banger after banger, but one sub-series reigned supreme, the Modern Warfare series. With its action-packed, globe-trotting campaigns to its fast-paced and arcadey multiplayer, they set records for the time, and characters like Captain Price, Soap, and Ghost became household names for gamers of all walks of life. But that success wouldn't last. With the release of GTA 5 cutting the winds out of the 2013 COD Ghost sales, then Advanced Warfare jumping the shark, taking the franchise in a direction that fans were not happy with, year by year, perception of COD fell to lower and lower depths. And just when things were at their lowest, Infinity Ward came in with a simple idea that just might save the game. One word that would unknowingly become the backbone of the series going forward: nostalgia. It was announced that in 2019, IW would be taking Call of Duty back to the golden age, even if in name only, with a reboot of the acclaimed Modern Warfare series. Though it was clear upfront that this would be a new take on the concept, with a more gritty, realistic style than the one we grew up with, and that the multiplayer would be its own new experience with new mechanics that paid homage to the series' roots, but still had a flavor of its own, with a heavy emphasis on tactical gameplay to draw in that Rainbow Six crowd, which was making waves in the FPS genre at the time. The lead up to the release was filled with more hype than any Call of Duty before, even breaking out the core COD community with award nominations galore. The industry at large seemed to be recognizing the weight that this in particular Call of Duty entry had. Graphically, the game was at its best in years, and arguably, it's the best looking entry since, with the kind of attention to detail that you don't often see out of yearly release titles. An alpha was released for their newest mode, Gunfight. This was a 2v2 cage match where teams were given the same bare bones loadout and had to rely on teamwork, map knowledge, and raw gun skill to win. This, in the age of battle royale takeovers, resonated with fans, as it scratched the same ultra-competitive one-life itch while being something truly unique to Call of Duty. On October 25th, 2019, the game drops and fans get their hands on the full campaign, multiplayer, and Spec Ops for the first time. The campaign was gritty and grounded, something fresh yet familiar. It was clear that while they took inspiration from the OG trilogy, this wasn't a cheap remake or gimmick, with a completely original story showcasing the blurry, moral gray area of war with some of the most controversial scenes since No Russian. The only main character from the originals to make a return was Captain Price, which felt like a conscious choice to not simply redo what COD 4 did as a quick cash grab. It wasn't until players got to the ending that things started to fit into the mold of the Modern Warfare universe, with Price founding Task Force 141 with a tease of what's to come in the next installment. The hype surrounding this moment was massive and can only be compared to an MCU after credit scenes in the first few phases. Now, the multiplayer side of things was an overwhelming success compared to the lukewarm reception of Black Ops 4. New systems like the Gunsmith, allowing you to customize your weapon to the unprecedented degree, felt refreshing. There was a new tactical sprint that let you move even faster, but at the risk of taking longer to bring your gun back down to fire. They replaced the future era specialist system with an operators that only affected your character's look, and a separate field upgrade slot that acted independently of which operator you chose. Even the mounting mechanics that went widely unused for many were seen as nice to have features that filled out Call of Duty's sandbox that hadn't changed much in the last few years. However, there were a handful of controversial additions, like openable doors, moving the Dead Silence perk to your field upgrade slot, and getting rid of the red dot that appears on the minimap when an enemy fires their weapon. Couple that with a pretty fast time to kill and more complex map design, and you get 2019's signature campy lobbies and slow gameplay. Until the community discovered an exploit with the game's sliding mechanic, letting you cancel mid-slide and regain your sprint. a bug that many players took advantage of, speeding up the game immensely, even if the devs didn't like it. This was also the first game to adopt more strict skill-based matchmaking. Though, because of the devs' secrecy around the system, many in the mainstream audience weren't yet aware of how manipulated their experiences were, and wouldn't have had as big of an impact on the series for a few more years to come. 2019 also came loaded with co-op modes that were quickly forgotten by most of the audience. Spec Ops consisted of missions in the massive open world of Verdansk, but the overpowered AI and the sheer length of checkpointless levels made the mode a chore. And while 2019 also saw the return of survival for one final time, it was also shelved in favor of what was right around the corner. In March of 2020, Call of Duty ventured into the free-to-play market with Warzone, a battle royale that took over the space. While similar to their previous BR, Blackout, Warzone innovated on the genre with the Gulag system, giving you a chance at respawn if you die early in the game, and loadouts that you could build prior to the match and earn in-game, adding the long-term progression system usually found in multiplayer. With tons of updates as the year went on, and the world in the midst of a pandemic forcing people inside, Warzone's popularity skyrocketed. Everyone was playing COD again. From fans who left years ago to new players eager to win their first game, Call of Duty was back, and it was all owed to the same franchise that catapulted them 10 years ago, Modern Warfare. But what goes up must come down, as the next 2 years were a bit unstable for COD. The pandemic that gifted them such an audience in the year prior was causing understandable issues in production of the next game. With Black Ops, Cold War's mixed reception, and Vanguard's downright poor one, they were beginning to lose the grasp that they had reclaimed on the FPS genre. All the while, Warzone continued to perform, receiving major updates every season and yearly map changes aimed at maintaining this new audience that they had gained. It was the only lifeline they had, but being built on a 3-year-old engine that wasn't designed to be built off like this, even Warzone was starting to deteriorate. After the success of their 2019 title, Activision gave Infinity Ward the keys to the castle and a full 3 years of development to make a sequel that would get them out of this funk. But could they learn from their mistakes, further refine their strengths, and deliver a game worthy of sharing the name Modern Warfare 2? The short answer is no. The campaign was full of awful writing and half-baked sequences that relied even more heavily on nostalgia to varying degrees of success. Spec Ops was even more hollow and lacked the depth and arcadey feeling that made the original so great. And then there's the multiplayer, which managed to keep all the bad design choices of 2019 and double down on their slow tactical gameplay, all wrapped up in a new confusing UI designed to be more like a streaming service than a comprehensive video game. Let's not even talk about the whole update requires restart. Also, data packs mysteriously disappearing after every new patch. It wasn't a good game, and players fell off in droves, as you can see from Steam charts from around that time. But let's break down why. To start, they drastically slowed down movement. Everything from aim down sights to reloads to sprint to fire time felt sluggish. Slide canceling was removed, and even jump shotting saw sweeping nerfs, taking away some of the last tools that rushers had in their toolbox. Perks were now placed on timers, so instead of having them all at the beginning of each match, you now had to earn them as the game progressed, creating a really weird flow that was almost universally disliked. But Infinity Ward stuck to their guns and refused to revert this change, even going as far as just reducing the timer in one weekend of the beta to meet in the middle, a change that didn't do a whole lot to fix what they broke. This is also where the gunsmith started getting just out of hand. Now that most weapons share the same attachments, it led to some categories like the underbarrel slot having dozens of unique options, a lot of which barely being different from each other. Plus, the new attachment tuning feature added an extra layer of complexity that really wasn't necessary for a game like Call of Duty. Multiplayer was also completely shafted in the first seasonal drop, only receiving 2 new maps for the entire season, and both of these were remakes, Shoot House and Shipment, And in fact, it wasn't until Season 2 Reloaded that the game saw its first original map added into the rotation. But shortly after Modern Warfare 2's release, on November 16th, 2022, Warzone 2.0 was dropped onto the world. A complete refresh from Warzone 1, designed to be continually updated for years to come from the ground up. And in perfect parallel to Modern Warfare 2, it was also an overwhelmingly big disappointment. Now, since Raven's takeover of Warzone 1 in 2020, Infinity Ward hadn't had much to say in creative direction. But because this iteration of Warzone was built off their newest game, Infinity Wards were the ones calling the shots once again, leading to some bizarre decisions and oversights, like the HUD and many quality of life improvements Raven's made over the years simply disappearing. The addition of AI bots in the game found at strongholds, which players were now supposed to clear to gain access to their loadouts. That's right, loadout drops were removed from the game in favor of a new, worse system. All on top of the slower movement from Modern Warfare 2 seeping its way into the new Warzone experience, tainting the entire thing from the ground up. People hated Warzone 2 so much, it was to the point that COD 2.0 became a meme, synonymous with breaking things that shouldn't have been touched to begin with. And many even decided to just go back to Warzone instead. That was until Activision announced that they'd be shutting down the original game servers to drive people to the new one. And they followed through, flipping the kill switch on September 21st, 2022, sunsetting the game responsible for putting the franchise back in the community's good graces in favor of a broken, shambling mess of a sequel with a fraction of player numbers. However, there was one new addition to Warzone that the community didn't immediately reject, and that was DMZ, a Tarkov-style extraction shooter that dropped multiple squads of 3 onto the map alongside a bunch of AI and pitted them all against each other with the mission of looting as much as you can and exfilling. The high-stakes PvP/VE nature of the mode turned off many casuals, but DMZ actually garnered a small yet devoted player base over the next few months before ultimately Activision chose not to continue support due to it sucking up resources from other modes. While eventually Raven was given back the keys to Warzone in late 2023 and began steering it back in the right direction, by that point, a lot of the player base had left them for other games. When you try to be the jack of all trades, you end up mastering none. And the 2022 era of COD exemplified this perfectly. If 2019 was the year that revived Call of Duty, 2022 is what put it back on life support. Thankfully, the next game in the Modern Warfare series wouldn't be for another few years, because Sledgehammer Games is up next in 2023 with their newest entry, Modern Warfare 3. Wait, what? That's right, Modern Warfare 3. Instead of doing what everyone had come to expect out of COD and rotate their series and developers on a 3-year cycle, COD 2023 was still given to Sledgehammer Games, but with the caveat that it had to be a direct sequel to Modern Warfare 2, which means only 1 year later, and we've already gotten the next installment in the series, an even shorter turnaround time than the 2 years we would get back in the golden era. Nostalgia was once again the subtext of every piece of marketing around the game, and it was around this time that many started to get tired of it. This, compounded with trusted leakers reporting that prior to MW2's 22 release, they had planned a year 2 drop containing all the original MW2 maps from 2009. But then, somewhere along the way, this drop became a full release and turned into what we now know as Modern Warfare 3. Now, regardless whether or not those rumors are true, it doesn't really matter, because perception is reality. And pretty soon the words $70 DLC were found in the comment section of nearly every piece of marketing for the game. This news took over the game's hype like a plague, many swearing the game off before even the first trailer was released. And with every new piece of information we learned about the game, the more it looked like those rumors were true. Modern Warfare 3 released on November 10th, 2023, with only an alleged 16 months of development time. Although the key difference between MW2 and MW3 was that Infinity Ward had little to no involvement with the title, and this couldn't be more evident upon loading into multiplayer for the first time. Red dots are back on the minimap. Perks don't have to be earned anymore, and Dead Silence reclaims its place as a perk. Movement feels fast and fluid, with slide canceling not only being added back to the game, but encouraged by the devs, with marketing material even bragging about its inclusion in this title. Everything seemed to pull a 180 in favor of the players. Sledgehammer was listening and taking steps to right the wrongs of last year's game. Infinity Ward may have been responsible for the reboot, but Sledgehammer were the ones keeping it afloat. And it wasn't just them. Raven was placed back in charge of Warzone, now dropping the dreaded 2.0 from its name and reincorporating many features from the first iteration back into the game. Plus, it was updated to the new Modern Warfare 3 engine, so the faster movement and slide canceling that the community loved were back. And Treyarch was brought in to develop a pretty well-received zombies mode that blended their classic formula with the best parts of DMZ. It seemed like the only mode that truly continued the downward trend of the series was the campaign, with obviously rushed open world missions and a jarringly short runtime, which I go into more detail in my latest video, Is Modern Warfare 3 a Scam? But trust me, when I say not only is it the worst single player experience of the reboot, but it's easily the worst campaign of the entire franchise. And even in the modes that you were moving in the right direction, you could tell the corners were cut. For starters, there wasn't a single original map in the game. From every core 6v6 map being a remake, to the one war map being 3 old ones stitched together, and each ground war map being cut out of Urzikstan, the map they used for both Warzone and Zombies that year. Then, on top of over half the weapons in the game being carried forward from Modern Warfare 2, most of the equipment was copy and pasted as well, along with using the exact terrible UI due to the new COD HQ system, meaning it was even presented like a DLC. Still, it seemed like the devs were slowly repairing the goodwill that was lost the last year, and people were mostly enjoying a flawed but still much better game than the previous years. But the damage was done. $70 DLC continues to this day to be the unofficial tagline of the game. And when polled, many of my audience of COD fans didn't even bother picking it up. Reviews from mainstream outlets are even at an all-time low. You know it's bad when IGN doesn't even give you a passing grade. So that leaves us here, where the original trilogy ended, at Modern Warfare 3, the tarnished legacy of the once iconic Modern Warfare name. A story we've seen time and time again with reboots, more interested in making a quick buck than a good product worthy of your money. The shame is that the reboot showed so much promise. You can tell that so many devs poured so much into so many aspects of the game, but the yearly release schedule and studio leadership failed them. And it failed you, the player. Just like what we saw with the jetpack and World War II eras before us. It seems like doubling down on one setting or mechanic for 3 titles gets very stale very quickly. And that nostalgia only gets you so far if you've created a reputation of villainizing your fan base and rejecting feedback. With the ending of Modern Warfare 3's campaign, it's no secret that a Modern Warfare 4 is coming. Thankfully, not for a few years, unless Activision or now Microsoft don't learn their lesson from this year's release. And only time will tell if we can put these rocky titles in the rearview mirror and they can make something truly great, or if this downward trend will only continue as years go on. Wherever the future of this series takes us, my only hope is that maybe next time they just let Sledgehammer finally make the Advanced Warfare sequel they clearly have been wanting to make for the last decade. They really deserve it. Thank y'all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. Let me know what you think about the Modern Warfare reboot, and we'll see you in the next one.